Alright, everybody, how we doing today? Final story uh, from Reason.com. Free Minds and Free Markets says domestic wealth tax proposals demonstrate economic ignorance. I'll never stop covering this nonsense. The Democrats just do not understand economics. Bashing the rich may be good politics, but it's terrible economics. You got that right. It's open season on wealth and those who created it. Candidates for the Democratic presidential nomination, like Senator Bernie Sanders, for instance, say that billionaires should not exist. Billionaires should not exist! And the wealth disparity in America is a moral and economic outrage. California businessman Tom Steyer, who happens to be a billionaire, says that Senator Sanders is right, while Senator Elizabeth Warren laments the extreme concentration of wealth in America. Wait a minute. An actual billionaire says Bernie is right about billionaires. That has got to be the most bizarre form of hypocrisy I've ever witnessed in my life. That is just strange. But they all call for both a wealth tax and a massive increase in government spending in order to fix this inequality and restore social justice in America. In doing so, they demonstrate how little they understand economics. Not only that, how little they understand the concept of social justice. When has America ever been just? There's always been some kind of injustice going on in this country in almost every decade you can imagine. Now, I'm not going to be like one of these leftists, and once they find something bad about something, they immediately gravitate towards the bad thing, and then all the good stuff about it just immediately becomes nullified, if only in their own minds. I'm not taking that angle. But I'm saying there's never been true 100% justice in this country, and there probably never will. I mean, that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. But they honestly believe that government regulation is going to fix this so-called disparity. Well, let's keep reading. For starters, wealth inequality is a very poor measure of unfairness in our society. Speaking at the Peterson Institute recently, economist and former Treasury Secretary Lawrence Summers correctly made the case that a change in wealth inequality would have little impact on the concentration of political power. Reducing inequality is also a poor means to fix whatever these candidates think ails America. In 2013, a paper published by the Brookings Institution economist Scott Winship reviewed claims made about inequality and their negative impact on various aspects of our lives. In a summary of that paper from National Affairs, he writes that there's little basis for thinking that inequality is at the root of our economic challenges, and therefore for believing that reducing inequality would meaningfully address our lagging growth, enable greater mobility, avert future financial crisis, or secure America's democratic institutions. A forthcoming paper by Cato Institute scholars Chris Edwards and Ryan Bourne confirms Winship's and Summers' findings. They also thoroughly debunk the claim that a more progressive welfare state is imperative to reduce wealth inequality. The truth is that more often than not, increases in welfare spending reduce the need for savings and cause wealth inequality to increase as a result. As Bourne writes at Cato, evidence from both here and abroad shows major social programs, not least Social Security, increase major wealth inequality because they leave the non-rich with proportionally less to save, less reason to save, and a larger share of their old age resources in a non-bequeathable form than the lifetime rich. Economists Baris Kamak and Marcus Poshke estimate that the expansion of Social Security and Medicare caused about 1/4 of the rise in the top of 1%, which share over recent decades. How about a wealth tax? Depending on its design, it could certainly butt wealth accumulation. However, the negative impact of the wealth tax wouldn't be concentrated on wealthy people. Everyone, regardless of their income and wealth level, would take a hit. That's because, contrary to what American progressives believe, most wealth isn't developed to extravagate consumption. Instead, it's invested in companies. It's used to fund research and development that will create better goods and services for customers. It serves as the capital that innovators and producers borrow from banks to grow their businesses. In other words, most wealth is used to fuel other wealth-producing activities that improve well-being. Yes, this is how GDP works. We need rich people at the top to continue to make investments. These investments will be into companies that are creating new wealth and new products. Do you have a microwave and a toaster? Guess what? Once upon a time, only the rich could afford those. You know what caused them to become affordable? Investment. They invested in the product, and after a time that increased the product's market value, thereby allowing the companies to create better and more successful means of mass producing the product so that more people could buy it. And then they could justify lowering the price so that everyone could have one. That's how it works. If you tax the wealth into non-existence, your GDP growth potentially could hit absolute rock bottom zero. It's not a zero-sum game. There is no such thing as wealth inequality. The value of the dollar increases because of the wealth of the rich also making... because the further the dollar goes in its purchasing power, the more things it can buy, the more valuable it becomes. And also, too, you lower its value by producing more dollars. If you print more money, it becomes less valuable. Rare is always valuable, to quote Scorpius from Farscape. Or unique, I should say. Unique is always valuable. Rare is also valuable. So if you keep the dollar rare, or relatively rare, and then, not have too many dollars, and then make sure that there's a bunch of different things that the dollar could go toward buying, and the dollar will stay on the top. That's literally GDP. Do these people understand that? No. Wouldn't be surprised if Bernie Sanders had a room temperature IQ or less. So whether a wealth tax will create a real disincentive to accumulate capital or force rich taxpayers to send a larger share of their money to the IRS, less capital will be available for everyone in the economy to use for their own business and training. That means that many Americans beyond the super wealthy will get burned by the tax. This negative consequence is a reason why so many countries that had wealth taxes in the 1990s have since abandoned them. The cost of implementing a wealth tax and annually assessing assets often costs more than the tax actually raises in revenue. In France, for instance, the administration cost was double the revenue raised as such. It's not surprising that the country dropped its wealth tax in 2018. It may feel good for some candidates to bash wealth accumulation and threaten to use taxes to punish the very rich. It may feel good to call for more spending as a means of reducing inequality, while neither of these policies would do much to achieve these goals. Calling for such policies goes a long way toward demonstrating economic ignorance, and an ugly dislike for a group of people by candidates who would use their power to destroy those they despise. That just scare all of us greatly. Exactly. Elizabeth Warren is a worthless candidate. So is Bernie Sanders. Do you have computers, microwaves, toasters? Thank the rich. If they hadn't invested in those technologies, you wouldn't even have them. You're a bunch of ungrateful little punks who don't understand economics. Get with the program, or get lost. I'm tired of human ignorance. I never get tired of talking about it. I love talking about it. But the ignorance itself, I'm sick of it. Get with the program or get lost. And for that matter, the only Democrats worth voting for in 2020, the only ones voting for are Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang. So if I don't see at least one of them on the Democratic ticket, and I don't, who I want to see Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang, and then I want to see Bill Weld for the Republicans. If I don't see any of these three people on the ballot, I just won't vote. As far as I'm concerned, everyone else is just absolutely worthless. You want to talk about wasting a vote? That's how you waste a vote. Anyway, peace.